So we've talked about how to add a class. We've also talked about how to add a class in an event when something is clicked on, but we have not talked about how to remove a class. You'll notice in the last couple of videos I talked about, well, once I click the button again, nothing actually happens because that class has already been added, so it can't be added again. So that means the animation doesn't run again. So what happens if I want to kind of toggle the animation, or when the animation is done, maybe remove the animation as well? Or if that animation is in the infinite loop, how do I stop that animation? So that's what we're going to talk about in this section. So in the demo, what we're going to do is we're going to try jQuery to remove class, and then we're going to try the jQuery toggle class as well, and I'll explain each of those. So let's go into the code here. I've modified a little bit what we're going to talk about from the last section, so make sure that you download the files from section 4 and open up those files to start from instead of the files that you had last time. But let's call out a little bit of what those files are. So coming into Sublime here, you'll notice that I don't have a class for section 1, don't have a class for section 2 or section 3, but I've actually come back into the HTML and I've added this class of animated Jello, so it's going to keep doing the Jello, and you can see that I added the class of infinite. So that means it's going to keep doing the Jello over and over and over. Now these other ones, I still have the buttons down at the bottom. These ones are going to start the other animation, but I haven't done anything in this section. I removed what I did in the last section for section 4 BTN, because what I want to do, because that's running infinitely, is I want to use this button to then stop the animation. And we're going to stop the animation with the remove class. So coming back into the interaction.js, you'll notice that I only have section 1, section 2, section 3, but I don't have a section 4. So we're going to set up the function, first of all, to run when section 4 is clicked. So I'm going to say function, and then I'm going to stop animation. We'll just do that for short here. And then open close parentheses, and then open close curly bracket. So we're going to use this function to stop. Let's just make sure that this is working first of all. So I'm going to say alerts, and in that alerts, I'm going to alert hello. So let's come back into the HTML file and let's add an on-click event. And so we're going to run, I'm going to get that exact function. I'm going to go ahead and copy that just so I have it correct there. Open close parentheses, and then hit save. So let's go into the browser and just make sure that this is working. I'm going to hit refresh and then come into Animate section 4. And then hit close there. It is working. I got the alert. Let's go back into the HTML file. And instead of animate section 4, I'm going to say stop section 4 or stop animation. You can change that. And that's just in the HTML file, so it makes a little bit more sense. All right, so let's come into interaction.js. And so let's get rid of that alert. I just use the alert to make sure that that function is working. That's typically what I do, is I use an alert to say, okay, function is good to go. That way, if I start adding code in there and then all of a sudden it's not working, well, I've already figured that out that it is working, and so it's not the function itself, it's something else in the code. So let's go ahead, and from here, we're going to talk to section 4, so we're going to use our jQuery selector. And now in quotes, we're going to talk to a class of section 4. And then we're going to say, instead of add class, we're actually going to remove class. This is another jQuery function that we can call. And so we're going to say remove class, but we have to call in or pass in the parameter. And the classes that we're going to remove is both animated and Jello, because that is the two classes that are added by default. If I come back into the HTML file, those two classes are there, animated. I might want to remove infinite as well, so let's copy that. Well, actually, if I remove that, then infinite really won't matter. So if I add this back, then infinite will still be there. So I'm going to hit save. Let's go into the browser. Let's hit refresh. And now you can see that the button has changed to stop section 4. I'm going to click on that, and it is now removed. If I go ahead and right click, come over to inspect element so I can see the code, you can see that the column 4 still has that infinite class, but it does not have the animated class, and it does not have the class of Jello. So that's how we effectively stopped the animation. It was continuing to run, but we stopped it. So now we need to add it back on. But if I come in here and I click on this again, it's just going to stop it. And I can't really go in and say, okay, if it's animated, I guess I could see if it has a class of animation, and then remove the animation if it does. If it doesn't have the class of animation, then animate the class. But that's a lot of code. There's an easier way of doing this. And so I'm going to come back into the code here. And instead of remove class, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this to toggle class. If I come in and say toggle class, basically what that will do is it'll say if it's there, then remove it. If it's not there, then add it. If I come back in here and did the same thing with all of them, then that would work. It would just kind of toggle it from being on to off. So let's come back into the browser, and so let's go ahead and hit refresh. And you'll notice the first time I click on it, stops. The second time I click on it, starts going again. Let's go back into the code, and let's change that. I'm going to say toggle class and all of them. Just copy and paste all of them. Let's go back into the browser here, hit refresh, and you'll notice the second time I click on it, so I clicked on it once and it animated, but the second time I clicked on it, nothing happened. Now the reason why, if I click on it again, it'll animate again. You'll notice, let's go into the code. I'm going to inspect this element here. And you'll notice right now, we have an animated shake. That's because the animation ran and then it stopped. And so from here, if I click on it again and go back into inspect code, the classes have now been removed because it takes another click in order to remove the class. First click will add the class, then the second click will remove the class, and then I have to click again to add it back. There is still a better way of doing this, that when the animation is done, then remove the class automatically. And we'll talk about how to do that. That's basically listening for the animation to complete and then running some functions or running some code after the animation is completed. We'll get into that in the next section.